When I was 12, my parents left town for a second honeymoon at Niagara Falls. They left my brother, who was 17, in charge of 12-year-old me and my 10-year-old sister. A few days after my parents left, my brother told me that my sister was sleeping over at her friend's house, and that he was getting drunk and high at his buddy's place. He gave me very clear instructions not to set the house on fire or rip my balls off, and that I would have the house to myself. A few hours after my brother left, my Saint Bernard started barking his head off at the woods near my house. I thought there was just a bear or wild dog nearby, and my dog wanted to fight because he was really aggressive towards strangers in his territory. I ignored him for about half an hour, and I got sick of the barking. I went downstairs to lock him in my parents' room, but as I went to go to the living room to grab him, I saw a man looking straight at my dog through the glass door. He was trying to pick the lock. I freaked out and told him to piss off, and barely managed to wrangle my dog into my room. I called the police and then my parents. The police came by 25 minutes later and basically told me they picked up a guy trying to break into a parked car, and they wanted to see if it was the guy who tried to break in, as the idiot didn't wear a mask for either crime. Sure enough, it was. And he also confessed to being the culprit behind other burglaries around town and ratted out his meth-cooking selling partners. This happened a couple of weeks ago. I live in a major city. My street is a narrow one-way. Cars can parallel park on one side of the street, and it fits 30 cars. I'm outside my door, which is at the end of the street, smoking a cigarette before bed. I'm looking across the street, and to my right, I see something out of the corner of my eye behind one of the parked cars way down. It was just a movement. I didn't really get a good look at it, so I kept smoking. A couple of seconds later, I saw it again. This time it looked like someone had ducked behind the cars. This street is well lit, but it was hard to see because there were maybe 25 or so cars, and it was fast. It was about 3 seconds, and I saw a head pop up from the car in front of the last one I saw. It was clearly a head, and it ducked down again. Before I knew it, it had happened again, and popped up in front of that car and was still. Now, whoever it was knew I saw him. He ducked again, and in a flash was popping his head up from the next car, getting closer to me. He definitely knew that I saw him. He moved really fast, but not supernaturally fast, just very quick. Up until this point, I was curious but now feeling really uneasy. I'm 5'11" and 185 pounds and work out, but I can't remember the last fight I had. It was so creepy. He's now about 6 car lengths away, and I can see him clearly. He's looking directly at me. He looks pretty normal, bigger than me, and has glasses on. Then he ducks again. I almost pissed myself and ran into my house, closed the door, and looked through the peephole. I could only see one car and half of another one, and could imagine the guy ducking down and scurrying to the next car and popping up again. I was just about to stop looking as he popped up right at the back of the car parked in front of my house. He definitely could not see me. I had no lights on in the hallway outside and inside. But he just stood there looking at me. He looked like he was mad about something. He took his glasses off, wiped them, and stuck them in his pocket. I couldn't see his lower half, but it looked like he was wearing a long coat. He was looking directly at me for a minute. It looked like he was going to walk, and I was hoping he was not going to come around the car and get up to my door. Then he ducked down and out of sight. I was getting freaked out at this point. I stood at the door until 3:25 a.m., listening. Then I went to bed and was awake, listening for a while. For the last year, I've been having to go to the laundromat at least once a week due to not being able to afford any washer and dryer up front. It's never been the issue until a few weeks ago. I went one night and there was an older gentleman sitting there. I've never seen him before, but there aren't really the same people when I go. At one point, I heard him mumbling to himself, but there were plenty of people, so I wasn't worried. I walked out the door to my car, and he was sitting at a table with his head down. When I got around to the driver's side of my door, I looked up at him, standing at the laundromat door, staring straight at me. I froze. I was so scared I sent my husband a text with a full description of him, just in case. Last week, I was there with my oldest son, and the same man was just sitting there, wearing the same outfit. So, I started to wonder. We were the only 3 there, and my laundry was the only laundry being done. It clicked that maybe he's homeless, and he comes at night to stay warm. I left a couple of dollars by the vending machine when I was leaving, as I heard him get change and get a snack. A couple of nights later, I had to go again to wash blankets, and he was there once more. On these 2 occasions, I never got any weird vibes like the first night, and I wrote him off as harmless. Tonight, I had to go there with my 3 kids, while my husband was helping a friend at his house. When we got there was no one but us, and we were sitting at the front of the place. My laundry was in washers at the back, so when I went back to check the washers, I saw it was all my stuff. I continued around the corner to grab a basket, and the homeless man was standing there. I jumped because I didn't hear anyone come in, and he definitely was not there when we walked in. I continued past him and walked up to the other side where my children were sitting. At this point, I hear him talking to himself. "She saw me and got scared and ran off. You're stupid." And I heard the bathroom door slam shut. Alarm bells were going off, and I'm quietly hurrying my kids to get their stuff gathered. I considered slipping out of the front door that we were sitting by and walking down the alley and around to my car. It was dark, and my kids were already getting scared, so I decided not to. We all held hands and walked straight to the back. I thought he was still in the bathroom because I didn't hear him come out. When we passed the sitting area in the back, he was standing there, combing his hair. We continued out the door like we weren't peeing our pants scared. I got them in the car and went around to get in, and he was there again, standing at the back door, staring at us. I quickly got in, locked the doors, and left, then called my husband so I could pick him up. We all came back to switch the clothes and wait for them to dry, and the man was still there. The man walked out, staring at me the entire time. He did 2 circles around the place, still staring. My husband went back in once the clothes were dry and said the man wasn't there. Now I'm officially creeped out by this. I plan on going during the day from now on, and I don't plan on staying if I'm the only person there. Hopefully, by the beginning of the year, I can stop going. Am I being crazy, or is this a real creep? About a year ago, when I was 20, I got a new job. I didn't have a car, so I had to take the bus. I had to catch 2 buses to get to my job. My second stop was a layover, so I typically had about 30 minutes before that bus left. One day, I had gone into the Walmart by the bus stop to pick up some lunch for work. The bus stop was right behind a plaza that had various stores and restaurants. A heavy-set man with curly hair, probably in his mid-30s, walked out behind me. He said, "Hey, has anyone ever told you that you look like Zoe Kravitz?" I have a thing about being rude to people who are hitting on me because I'm terrified they'll hurt me if I'm mean to them. It does happen to women quite often. I just said thanks and kept walking to my bus stop. He saw me walking to my bus and called after me, "Hey Zoe, do you need a ride?" I was very irritated that he had called me Zoe, so I just said no, then ran onto my bus. About a week after that, I ran into him again at the same Walmart, and I heard, "Hey Zoe," and he ran up to me. I saw him closing the door of a burgundy van. It was one of those stereotypical creeper vans that only had the front windows. This made me super uneasy, and I turned around and kept walking. "Oh, Zoe," I heard him sing from behind me. I replied, "My name isn't Zoe." He asked me what my name was. One of the Walmart employees saw me looking uncomfortable and ran up to me and said, "Oh hey, Melissa, it's good to see you. I'm about to go on lunch. If you want to come with me, I'll go clock out real quick." At first I was confused because Melissa is also not my name. Then I realized what was going on, so I just said, "Oh yeah, of course." Once we were out of earshot, she told me that they've been having a lot of problems with that guy doing similar things to women around the plaza. He was known for harassing women, specifically tall, skinny, light-skinned women like myself. She told me her manager was trying to get him banned from the Walmart, but had been unsuccessful. We waited for about 15 minutes, then she walked out with me, with a male co-worker, and they snuck me out the back and walked me to the bus. I didn't see him for a while, and then one day, when I went to catch my second bus, I saw his van waiting in the parking lot near the bus stop. I thought maybe this isn't him, and I'm just paranoid. I walked past the van, and it started moving slowly towards me. "Hey Zoe," he said. "We didn't get to talk last time. You never told me your name." I ignored him and started sprinting. He floored it and stopped his van in front of me, then got out. I screamed as loud as I could to attract attention, because it was broad daylight, and once I screamed, people started to look, and one person came to me and asked if I was okay. He had sped off once I screamed. I went to Walmart and called my coworker to pick me up. They took me to work for the next couple of days. Then came their off day. I got on the bus and thought, well, if I go to Tim Hortons instead of Walmart, I'll be fine, right? I was ordering at the counter, and I didn't realize he had seen me and gone up through the drive-thru. The way this Tim Hortons was set out, you could see right to the counter from the drive-thru window and vice versa. I heard it. Zoe. My heart sank. I ran to the bathroom and hid for a few minutes, then walked out. The employees told me that he seemed really pissed off when I didn't respond. I told them that I'd been having issues with him for weeks. This time I was again escorted to the bus tour by an employee. I looked around for his van and didn't see it, so I felt safe and sat down on a bench. I didn't want to get on a bus yet, because it was a nice day, and I wanted to enjoy it. Then I heard screeching and a door slam. He got out of his van, screaming, "You gonna stop ignoring me, Zoe?" I scrambled to get on the bus, and he followed me on the bus, screaming at me. I started crying and saying, "I don't know you. Stop following me." At this point, the other passengers began standing up for me, then threatening the man. He eventually got off the bus. After this, I changed my work schedule so I could ride with a coworker every day, and I haven't seen him since. Alas, when stuck on a bus again with 40 minutes of time to kill and no music in my new phone, this happened to me in June. Our school exams start around June 20th every year, and well, I chose to not do math the entire year and study hard for the last month. Our school is a private school, and I can't afford it without a scholarship, so I have to get good results on those exams. So, I got a cheat, who's also my best friend's mom. I spend almost every day at their place, which is on the other side of our small city. I live in Armenia, for context, and we're a poor second world country, so our public transport kinda sucks. A taxi is expensive, and the minimum from our place to theirs is about 1,000 dram, which is like $2, but is more like 15 for us. So I have a crappy minibus for 40 minutes every time I go and come back. Now, until then, my experience with public transport was pretty mild. I'm a girl, which if you're not Moga, results in at least a small amount of unnecessary attention, but you get used to it after a while. Nothing too worrying. I got hit on once or twice and stared at a lot, but it never really bothered me. I get away with it most of the time because of my chronic angry face. I look like the most unapproachable person in the world, let alone on the bus or at the station. So, when this happened, I was beyond shocked. That particular day, I had to stay longer than usual. It was 4 days before the exam, and I was extra panicky. Also, I should note that I looked like absolute crap. My hair was in a greasy bun, and I was wearing a huge hoodie and sweatpants. Not saying that's a horrible look for everyone, but me in particular. I looked like a potato sack with a head and an onion on her head. So, I got out at around 8:30 p.m., and it was getting dark. When I got the bus, it was full dark, and the bus was completely empty. Now, to explain this properly, you need to imagine the bus I was in and how the seats are positioned. I'm sitting on the first seat next to the window, the left one. I was the first passenger here, so 2 stops later, 3 men get on the bus. This dude, who had the full ability to sit anywhere he wanted on the bus, elected to sit next to me. I didn't really give it much thought because it's the first row. Maybe he just sat where he could. The 2 other dudes sat in the front next to the driver's seat. We drove for another 2 stops, and a girl gets on. He gets up and moves to the seat behind his, and the girl sits next to me. He started talking to her, and she seemed quite uncomfortable, although she giggled along. On the next stop, he moved to the singular seat next to the window. Now, this is where the first red flag comes in. He turns to a full side body and continues talking to her. "Pretty girl, where are you getting off? Maybe with me?" And she says no, and continues giggling uncomfortably. At this point, their driver himself, his side-eyeing this dude. A stop later, she gets up to pay, and he touches her thigh. She turns around and yells at him to stop. The driver turns around in anger and tells him to sit down and not move until he gets off the bus. Kudos to the driver's honesty. Stuff like this is common bus culture, and it happened a couple of times to me, and nobody ever said anything. Regardless, she practically jumped off the bus and speed walked away. My heart is racing at this point. I know it would have been noble of me to protect her, but I honestly couldn't. I was scared of the dude, and I wouldn't have stopped him. It was 9:45 by now, and the streets are empty. I had my headphones in, but I turned the music off because I'm scared of this dude, and I'm alone with him, and no one but an old man, the driver, and one of the dudes from earlier, who's fast asleep, are on the bus. That's when he turns to me. "How old even are you?" I didn't answer, and pretended not to hear him. He didn't ask again. I was facing away from him and looking out of the window. Instead, I felt the flash of his camera. I turned around, and he was holding his phone at me. He was grinning, and looked at me as if I were his friend who he'd just pranked or something. I didn't say anything, and continued to look out the window. At this point, I was full-on panicking. I opened my bag as casually as I could, and mentally screamed at myself. I had left my pocket knife at my friend's house earlier that week, and kept forgetting to take it back. So I took a pencil out, one of the mechanical ones with a metal nib, and quickly put it in my pocket. Then, another flash came. This time, it was with the camera. I literally dialed 911 and sat there. I didn't call it. I just put the number in just in case, and texted my friend. Then he was typing something. When I got to my stop, I didn't ask for the bus to stop until we were right at it. The second I was about to pass my stop, I basically screamed for the driver to stop. He quickly stopped, and I got off really quick. He didn't have enough time to get off as well, as the driver soon drove off and left, probably because he realized what was happening and didn't want him to follow me. I still don't understand why anyone would need a picture of me. I don't even want to, especially not then. A couple of days later, when I was at that bus stop, now heading from my place to my friend's place, I saw the guy again. He tried to talk to me and asked me again how old I was. I promptly told him it was none of his business, and walked away. He tried to follow me, but I went into the local pet shop, and I know the owner after 6 years of being a regular. She told him more strongly to leave. I never saw him again, nor do I ever want to. Hey there. Hope you enjoyed these stories. If you can, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. See you next time.